The champagne flutes were arranged in perfect rows. The caterers moved efficiently through my kitchen, their white shirts crisp and professional. Everything was exactly as I'd planned for our 15th anniversary party, down to the uninvited guest who would arrive at 8 o'clock. My husband Daniel stood at the living room window, adjusting his tie for the third time. He looked nervous. Good. He should be. "You've outdone yourself, Claire," he said, not meeting my eyes. "This is really elaborate." 15 years deserves elaborate, I replied, my voice steady. "Don't you think?" He finally looked at me, and for just a moment, I saw guilt flash across his face before he smiled. "Of course, I'm lucky to have you." The lies came so easily to him now. I'd found out 3 weeks ago, not through some dramatic discovery or suspicious behavior, though looking back, the signs had been everywhere: late nights at the office, new cologne, the way he'd started going to the gym religiously after years of promising to get in shape. No, I'd found out because he'd been careless. He'd left his laptop open, his messages displayed like a confession on our kitchen table. Messages to someone named Jessica, messages that made my stomach turn and my hands shake. But I hadn't confronted him. Not yet. Instead, I'd done something I never thought I was capable of. I'd planned. The doorbell rang and Daniel jumped slightly. "That'll be the Hendersons," he said, heading for the door with forced enthusiasm. Our friends began arriving in clusters. Tom and Sarah Henderson carrying an expensive bottle of wine. The Chens from next door, Daniel's colleague Marcus with his wife. Everyone dressed in their party best, ready to celebrate our seemingly perfect marriage. I played my part flawlessly, laughing at jokes, accepting congratulations, pretending that my world hadn't shattered 3 weeks ago on an ordinary Tuesday morning. "You two are relationship goals," Sarah Henderson said, hugging me warmly. 15 years and still so in love. What's your secret?" "Communication," Daniel answered before I could speak, sliding his arm around my waist. "Always being honest with each other." I felt bile rise in my throat, but smiled through it. "Absolutely. Honesty is everything." At 7:45, I excused myself to check on the caterers. In the kitchen, I pulled out my phone and sent a single text to the number I'd found in Daniel's messages. "The address is correct. Come to the front door at 8 p.m. Claire Walker." My hands trembled as I put the phone away. There was still time to change my mind, to cancel this plan and confront Daniel privately like a reasonable person, to handle this betrayal with grace and dignity instead of public humiliation. But then I remembered the messages, the way he'd called her baby, the photos they'd exchanged, the fact that while I'd been planning our anniversary party, he'd been planning a weekend getaway with her. No, he didn't deserve privacy. He didn't deserve dignity. At 7:58, I positioned myself near the front door, a fresh glass of champagne in hand. At 8 o'clock exactly, the doorbell rang. Daniel was across the room, deep in conversation with Marcus about some project at work. He didn't notice as I opened the door. She was younger than I'd expected. Mid-20s with long dark hair and nervous eyes, pretty in that effortless way that comes before life gets complicated. "Jessica," I said warmly, as if greeting an old friend. Her face went pale. "Mrs. Walker, Please, come in," I interrupted, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room. "We're so glad you could make it to our anniversary party." Every head turned. I watched Daniel's face as he saw her standing in our doorway. The color drained from his cheeks. His champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on our hardwood floor. "Claire," he started, his voice strangled. "What is she?" "Everyone," I announced, my voice remarkably steady. "I'd like you to meet Jessica Martinez. She works in Daniel's office. I thought it would be nice to have her here tonight since she's been spending so much time with my husband lately." The room was silent except for the soft background music from the speakers. Well, Jessica looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her. "I should go," she whispered. "No, please stay," I said, my smile sharp enough to cut. "I have so many questions for you. Like, did you know he was married when you started sleeping with him? Or did he tell you the same lies he's been telling me?" "Claire, stop," Daniel said, moving toward me. "Let's talk about this privately." "Why?" I asked, turning to face him. You weren't concerned about privacy when you were texting her during our son's baseball game, or when you were meeting her at that hotel downtown. The one where we spent our honeymoon, Daniel. You took her to our hotel. Sarah Henderson gasped. Other guests began whispering. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. He told me he was getting divorced, that you two were separated and just living together for your son's sake. He said, I'm sure he said a lot of things, I interrupted gently. My anger toward her was fading, replaced by something closer to pity. She was a victim in this too, just a different kind. We're not separated. We're not getting divorced. We were happy, or at least I thought we were. I'm so sorry, Jessica sobbed. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. He showed me papers, said the divorce was being finalized. I thought. She looked at Daniel with something between disgust and heartbreak. You lied to me too. Daniel stood frozen, his face a mixture of shame and anger, and something that might have been panic. Get out, he finally said to Jessica, his voice low and dangerous. Don't you dare speak to her like that, I snapped. She's not the villain here, Daniel. You are. Our neighbor, Mrs. Chen, set down her drink. We should probably go, she said quietly. No, I said firmly. Please stay. I want witnesses to this. I want everyone to see who my husband really is. Claire, you're being hysterical. Hysterical? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. I found messages going back 6 months, Daniel, 6 months of lies. Of you coming home from her bed to mine, of you telling me you loved me while you were planning a future with her. Jessica was crying harder now. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Walker. I'm so sorry. If I'd known. Call me Claire, I said, surprising myself with the gentleness in my voice. And you can stop apologizing. This isn't your fault. I turned back to Daniel, who looked smaller somehow, diminished by the truth. I loved you, I said quietly. And for the first time that evening, my voice cracked. I gave you 15 years of my life. I gave you a son. I built a home with you. And you threw it away for what? For her? For the excitement? For some midlife crisis that you were too selfish to deal with honestly? It wasn't like that, he said weakly. Then what was it, Buimad demanded. Please explain it to me. Explain it to all of us. What was so wrong with our marriage that you couldn't just tell me? That you had to sneak around and lie and betray everything we built together? He opened his mouth, then closed it. What could he say? There was no explanation that would make sense, no justification that would erase what he'd done. The silence stretched on until Marcus cleared his throat. We're going to head out, he said, his voice strained. Claire, if you need anything. Thank you, I said, meaning it. One by one, our guests filtered out, offering me hugs and sympathetic looks while avoiding Daniel entirely. Jessica left too, still crying, leaving behind only her apology hanging in the air. Finally, it was just the two of us and the catering staff, who were trying very hard to pretend they weren't hearing everything. You can go, I told them. Leave everything. I'll handle it tomorrow. They didn't need to be told twice. Once they were gone, Daniel finally found his voice. You humiliated me. I actually laughed, though there was no humor in it. I humiliated you. Do you hear yourself? You invited her here. You did this on purpose. Yes, I did, I interrupted, because you needed to see your lies standing in front of you. You needed to face what you'd done instead of hiding behind excuses and rationalizations. I was going to tell you, he said, and I almost believed the regret in his voice. Almost. When? After you'd moved in with her? After you'd filed for divorce? Or were you just going to keep living this double life until I eventually figured it out on my own? He sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. That's the problem, Daniel. You weren't thinking. Or you were, but only about yourself. I sat down across from him, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried me through the evening was fading, leaving only the crushing weight of reality. I loved you, I repeated, softer this time. I still love you, if I'm being honest. And that's the worst part. Because I want to hate you. I want to feel nothing but anger and disgust. But instead, I just feel broken. Daniel looked up at me, his eyes red. I'm sorry, Claire. I'm so sorry. I know you are, but sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't erase 6 months of betrayal. Before he could respond, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Our son Jake appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He was 12, tall for his age, with Daniel's eyes and my stubborn chin. Mom, Dad, what's going on? I heard people leaving. My heart stopped. We'd sent him to his room before the party, told him it was an adults-only event. He was supposed to be asleep. How much did you hear? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Jake's eyes filled with tears. Enough! Dad's been cheating on you? Daniel stood up quickly. Son, this is between your mother and me. Don't! Jake's voice cracked. Don't tell me it's not my business when you're destroying our family. Jake, I started, but he cut me off. Is that why you've been so weird lately? All those work dinners and business trips? He looked at his father with an expression that broke my heart. You lied to all of us. I'm sorry, Daniel said, reaching for Jake, but our son stepped back. Don't touch me. Jake's voice was cold, so unlike his usual warmth. I defended you when Uncle Mark said you were acting strange. I told Mom she was being paranoid when she mentioned you seemed distant. I believed in you. The weight of Daniel's betrayal expanded, touching yet another person we both loved. Jake, please, Daniel pleaded. I made a mistake, but I'm still your father. A father doesn't do this to his family, Jake said, his voice shaking. A father doesn't lie and sneak around. You taught me to be honest, to have integrity, and this whole time, you were doing the opposite. I stood and moved toward my son, wrapping my arms around him as he began to cry. He was almost as tall as me now, growing into a young man, but in that moment, he was just my little boy, hurt and confused. I've got you, I whispered. We're going to be okay. Are you getting divorced? Jake asked against my shoulder. I looked at Daniel over our son's head. He looked devastated, but I couldn't find it in myself to care about his pain right now. I don't know yet, I answered honestly, but whatever happens, you are loved. This is not your fault, and nothing about this changes how much we both love you. I don't want his love, Jake said bitterly, pulling away from me to glare at Daniel. Not if this is what his love looks like. Jake, Daniel's voice broke. I'm going to bed, Jake interrupted. Don't bother coming up to say goodnight. He left, his footsteps heavy on the stairs. A door slammed, and the sound echoed through our broken home. Daniel sank back onto the couch, his face in his hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. You did this, I said quietly. Not just to me, to him, to all of us. What happens now? He asked through his tears. I'd thought about this question constantly over the past 3 weeks. Divorce was the obvious answer, the logical one, but nothing about this felt logical. I don't know, I admitted. I know I can't trust you anymore. I know every time you're late from work or on your phone, I'll wonder if you're lying. I know that even if we tried to fix this, I'd always remember tonight, this betrayal. I'll do anything, Daniel said desperately. Therapy, counseling, whatever you need. I'll quit my job. Stop, I cut him off. Don't make promises you can't keep. Don't compound the lies with false hope. He fell silent. I stood up, my legs shaky. You're going to sleep in my guest room tonight. Tomorrow, you're going to pack a bag and stay with your brother for a while. I need space. I need time to think without you here muddying everything. Claire, this isn't negotiable, Daniel. You lost the right to negotiate when you chose to betray me. He nodded slowly, defeated. I walked upstairs to our bedroom, my bedroom now, and closed the door. Only then did I let myself fall apart. I sank to the floor, my back against the door, and finally let the tears come. 15 years. 15 years of marriage, of partnership, of love, and it had taken him only 6 months to destroy it all. 3 days later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office when my phone rang, an unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Walker, this is Jessica Martinez. I'm sorry to bother you, but I needed to talk to you. I should have hung up. I should have blocked the number and moved on, but something in her voice stopped me. What is it? I just wanted you to know that I broke things off completely with Daniel, and I quit my job. I know it doesn't fix anything, But I couldn't stay there, couldn't even risk running into him after what he did to both of us. You didn't have to quit, I said, surprised by my own concern for her. Yes, I did. I need a fresh start away from all the lies. She paused. And I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For showing me who he really was before I wasted any more of my life on him. You saved me from making an even bigger mistake. I didn't know what to say to that. I know you probably hate me, Jessica continued, and I understand if you do. But I want you to know that I never would have gotten involved with him if I'd known the truth. I'm not that person. Or at least I don't want to be. I don't hate you, I said, and realized it was true. You were lied to just like I was. We're both victims of his selfishness. She let out a shaky breath. Can I ask you something? Sure. Are you going to try to work things out with him? I looked down at the divorce papers on my lawyer's unsigned but ready. No, I said finally. I'm not. Because even if I could forgive him, I could never forget. And I deserve more than spending the rest of my life wondering if I'm enough. You are enough, Jessica said quietly. More than enough. He's the one who wasn't worthy of you. After we hung up, I picked up the pen and signed the papers. My hand was steady this time. 6 months later, I stood in what used to be our dining room, now converted into a home office for the online business I'd started. The catering company I dreamed about for years but never pursued because Daniel said it was too risky. My phone buzzed with a message from Sarah Henderson. Saw Daniel at the grocery store. He looks terrible. Asked about you. Told him you're thriving. Because you are. Proud of you, friend. I smiled and set the phone down, turning my attention back to the menu I was planning for a wedding reception next month. The anniversary party had been the end of my marriage, but it had also been the beginning of something else. A new life built on honesty instead of lies, on self-respect instead of false peace. I'd invited his mistress to our anniversary party to expose him, to punish him, to make him face the consequences of his actions. But in doing so, I'd also freed myself. And that, I realized, was the real gift. Epilogue. 18 months after the anniversary party that ended my marriage, I found myself standing in front of the mirror in my bedroom, adjusting a navy blue dress. Tonight was the corporate event, the one that had seemed so daunting months ago, but had turned out to be just the first of many. My business had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. I'd hired 2 assistants, was featured in a local magazine, and had a waiting list of clients. The dining room office had expanded into a full-fledged operation with rented commercial kitchen space downtown. Mom, Jake called from downstairs. Dad's here. I took a breath. Daniel and I had settled into a strange but comfortable routine. We weren't back together. The divorce papers remained unsigned, but also unfinalized, existing in some limbo that neither of us seemed ready to resolve. But we were friendly, cooperative, sometimes even friends. I went downstairs to find Daniel in the living room, looking uncomfortable in a suit. You clean up nice, I said. You look beautiful, he replied, and there was no ulterior motive in his voice, just honest appreciation. Are you two going on a date? Jake asked, grinning mischievously from the kitchen. Your mom has that big corporate event tonight, and I offered to be extra hands if she needed them, Daniel explained. And you said yes? Jake looked at me with surprise. I did. It's a huge event, and I need all the help I can get. Your dad's actually pretty good at setup work now. That's because you've trained me well, Daniel said with a small smile. At the venue, my team moved with practiced efficiency. Daniel worked alongside them without trying to take charge, following directions, asking questions when needed. It was strange seeing him in this role, supporting my dream instead of dismissing it. He's really different, my assistant Maria whispered to me as we arranged centerpieces. Not what I expected based on, everything you told me. People can surprise you, I said, sometimes for worse, sometimes for better. Midway through setup, I stepped outside for air and found Jessica sitting on a bench, scrolling through her phone. Jessica, what are you doing here? She looked up startled. Oh, hi, Claire. This is actually my venue. I'm coordinating from the venue side. I didn't realize it was your company catering until this morning. I almost called to see if you wanted me to transfer to a different event, but my boss said that would be unprofessional. I sat down beside her. I'm glad you didn't transfer. Really? Really, you're good at your job. And besides, we're past all that now, aren't we? Are we? Because I still sometimes wake up mortified about what I did, about who I was during that time. Jessica, you were lied to. You were a victim too. I was also someone who didn't ask enough questions, who wanted to believe the fantasy he was selling. She turned to face me. I've been in therapy too, trying to understand why I was so willing to be the other woman, even if I didn't know that's what I was at first. What did you learn? That I was looking for someone to validate me because I couldn't validate myself. Sound familiar? I smiled sadly. Daniel said something similar in his letter. He wrote you a letter? A few months ago, it was surprisingly insightful. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. I'm getting married, Jessica said suddenly. To Mark. He proposed last week. That's wonderful. Congratulations. Thank you. And Claire, I wanted to ask you something. You can absolutely say no, and I'll completely understand, but would you cater our wedding? I stared at her in shock. You want me to cater your wedding? I know it's crazy. Mark thinks I'm insane for even asking. But you're the best in the city, and more than that, it feels like a full circle moment, like we both survived that nightmare and came out the other side as actual human beings who respect each other. I thought about it for a long moment. A year and a half ago, the suggestion would have been laughable. 6 months ago, maybe tolerable. But now, I'd be honored, I said. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really, on one condition. What? You let me give you a discount. Consider it a wedding gift from someone who understands how hard it is to start over and build something real. She hugged me tightly, and I found myself hugging back without hesitation. The corporate event that night was a massive success. Everything ran smoothly, the clients were thrilled, and I landed 3 more bookings before the night was over. As we packed up afterward, Daniel approached me with 2 cups of coffee. You were amazing tonight, Brian, he said. Watching you command that room, handle the clients, manage your team. Claire, you're exactly who you were always meant to be. Thank you, and thank you for helping. You were great tonight, too. I was thinking, Daniel said carefully, maybe I could help out more often. Not as your husband or even your ex-husband, just as someone who believes in what you're building and wants to support it. As an employee, if you'll have me, part-time, I can do setup, breakdown, whatever you need. And before you worry about it being weird, I've thought about this. It wouldn't be about us or our past. It would be about me showing up for something you've created, the way I should have been doing all along. I considered it. The logical part of my brain said it was a terrible idea. But another part, the part that had been learning to trust again, slowly, carefully, saw something else, an opportunity for Daniel to put action behind his words, to prove through consistent behavior that he'd changed. Let me think about it, I said. That's fair. As we finished loading the van, my phone rang, an unknown number. Hello? Claire Walker, this is Patricia Chen from Bay Area Living Magazine. We're doing a feature on women entrepreneurs, and your name came up multiple times from different sources. Would you be interested in being interviewed? My heart raced. I thought, yes, absolutely. Wonderful. How's next Tuesday at 2? After I hung up, I stood there in shock. Good news? Daniel asked. Bay Area Living wants to interview me for their Women Entrepreneurs feature. Claire, that's incredible. He moved to hug me, then stopped himself, uncertain. I closed the distance and hugged him. Thank you. For what? For being happy for me. No jealousy, no competitiveness, just genuine happiness. You deserve all the success in the world, he said into my hair, and I'm grateful I get to witness it, even from the sidelines. When I got home that night, Jake was waiting up despite the late hour. How'd it go, he asked some. How'd it go, he asked her. Amazing, even better than I hoped. I told him about the bookings, the magazine interview, Jessica's wedding. You're catering the wedding of the woman who slept with Dad? I am. Is that weird? Jake thought about it. A year ago, yeah. Now I think it's kind of cool. Like you're both so past it that it doesn't even matter anymore. When did you get so wise? I have really good parents, Ron, he said. Both of them, even if they're complicated and weird. Later, alone in my room, I pulled out my journal for what had become a nightly ritual. Dear Claire, 18 months ago, you thought your life was over. Tonight, you catered one of the biggest events of your career. You're being interviewed for a magazine. You hugged your ex-husband, or whatever he is, without bitterness. You agreed to cater the wedding of the woman who had an affair with him. You've become someone you barely recognize, someone stronger, someone more forgiving, someone who understands that people are complex and messy and capable of both terrible mistakes and genuine growth. The divorce papers are still unsigned. You still don't know if you and Daniel will ever find your way back to each other. But here's what you do know. You're okay with not knowing. You've learned to live in the uncertainty, to build a life that doesn't depend on anyone else's choices but your own. And that feels like victory. There was a soft knock on my door. Jake poked his head in. Can I ask you something? Always. He came in and sat on the edge of my bed. Do you think you and Dad will get back together? I don't know, honey. Why do you ask? Because I've been thinking about it a lot. At first, I didn't want you to. I wanted you to divorce him and move on and show him you didn't need him. But lately what? Lately, I've been seeing how he's changed, how he shows up for both of us now, how he's not the same person who cheated. Jake picked at the bedspread. And I guess I'm wondering if maybe people deserve second chances when they do the work to earn them. Is that what you want, for us to get back together? I want you to be happy, Mom. If that's with Dad, great. If it's alone, that's great too. I just don't want you to say no just because you think you should, or yes, just because you think I want you to. I pulled him into a hug. How did I get so lucky to have you as my son? Good genetics? He joked, pulling away with a grin. But seriously, Mom, whatever you decide, I'm good. We're good. Our family is good, even if it looks different than it used to. After he left, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was someone I just started to recognize. Someone who'd been forged in fire and emerged not just intact, but transformed. My phone buzzed, a text from Daniel. Thank you for letting me be part of tonight. It meant more than you know. Sleep well. I typed and deleted several responses before settling on, same time next event? His response came quickly. I'll be there. I set down my phone and smiled, not because I'd made a decision about our future, but because I'd realized I didn't need to. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The anniversary party had ended one chapter of my life, but it had also opened the door to so many others. Some I'd walk through alone, some with Jake, and some, surprisingly, with Daniel by my side in a completely new capacity. Was it perfect? No. Was it what I'd expected? Not even close. But was it real and honest and built on a foundation of growth rather than illusion? Yes. And maybe that was enough. Claire. I turned to find Jessica Martinez standing behind me, looking professional in a business suit, her hair cut short in a style that made her look older, more confident. Jessica, I said, genuinely surprised, what are you doing here? I'm the event coordinator for this venue now, she said with a shy smile. I went back to school, got my degree in hospitality management. This is actually my first major event. That's wonderful, I said, meaning it. We stood there awkwardly for a moment before she spoke again. I know this is strange, but would you want to grab coffee sometime? No pressure, I think about that night sometimes. How you could have destroyed me, but you didn't. You showed me grace even when I didn't deserve it. I considered the question. 2 years ago, I would have said no, but I wasn't the same person I'd been then. Sure, I said, I'd like that. Because the truth was, we'd both been casualties of the same war, and maybe in some strange way, we'd both emerged stronger for it. As I watched the guests arrive for the event, smiling and laughing and celebrating love, I realized something important. The anniversary party hadn't just exposed Daniel's betrayal, it had revealed my own strength. I'd survived the worst moment of my life with my dignity intact. I'd rebuilt my life from the ashes of my marriage. And I'd learned that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's transformation. Daniel had taken 15 years of my life, but he hadn't taken my future, and that made all the difference.